Okay, our final mid-career award is the Advocacy Leadership Award, and Kim Saylors-Laster, Vice President of Energy at Wal-Mart, is going to be the presenter. Kim has been an ambassador since C3E began, and Kim and her team are responsible for natural gas procurement and electricity procurement for Wal-Mart, and she's also an executive champion of a number of renewable energy and energy efficiency initiatives within the Wal-Mart sustainability networks. So thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Martha, and thank you all for being here so late in the day. It's been an awesome day, and I know that everybody has enjoyed it. And so we have another award winner that I'm so honored to talk about today. As ambassadors, we have the opportunity to read so many inspiring nominations, and it's truly something that we value to read about these amazing women. One of my favorites this year was in the Advocacy Leadership Award area. And so I'm pleased to tell you today about Dorothy Barnett. Dorothy is the Executive Director for the Climate and Energy Project in Kansas. Dorothy has been leading a huge fight in Kansas through the legislators there who were trying to repeal the RPS standards. It's an amazing story. Dorothy shared it with us last night at dinner, and I was so amazed and so enthralled with her story that after she told me, I said, "You've got to tell it just like that tomorrow." And she said, "Well, it'll be shorter." And I said, "No, it can't be shorter, so I'm going to be very, very brief in the introduction so she can tell this story. But let me tell you this, Dorothy Barnett is one fearless lady." Welcome, Dorothy. I guess so, because here I am with it.
Thank you very much. I don't want to follow Deborah, but I am so honored to be receiving the Advocacy Leadership Award from C3E. It has been an amazing experience the last 2 days to be surrounded by so many women who are having such a positive impact on our energy future. Congratulations to you all for the work that you're doing, and thank you especially to DOE, to MIT, and to my former colleague, David Weiskopf, for nominating me. As Kim said, the terrific women I had dinner with last night convinced me to tell you about my very unusual path to become the executive director of the Climate and Energy Project. For those of you who talked about education, this will be a very interesting story. With the support from my husband, Brian, we've been married for 33 years, I was a non-traditional student who spent much of my adult life raising 3 amazing and talented daughters. I've always been very passionate about advancing women in leadership, particularly my own 3 girls. I encouraged them at early ages to be civically engaged, to give back to their communities through volunteerism, and to lead by example. I learned the art of collaboration through PTO meetings and fundraising. I learned how to motivate people to take action as co-chair of a committee to pass a $78 million bond issue for my school district. I went to my local community college, and I graduated the year that my oldest daughter graduated from high school. Following that, I took a bachelor completion program while working full-time, raising 3 children, and my education is in organizational management. I became interested in clean energy as a director of a small nonprofit whose sole mission was to grow the population of 1 county in Kansas. It was in this context that I met a dynamic woman who had recently started a nonprofit called the Climate and Energy Project. They were trying to change the conversation about energy use in Kansas. It was through this connection that I began to think about wind energy and its potential to revitalize rural Kansas. After a year of collaboration with the Climate and Energy Project, I began working as the Director of Energy and Transmission. I spent that entire year learning everything I could about the renewable energy industry. I went to conferences and I talked to people, and I really just absorbed myself in that potential. While the Director of Energy and Transmission, I co-created the Take Charge Challenge, a nationally recognized energy competition that we've held in 22 cities, designed to broaden the interest in energy efficiency. During 3 separate challenges, 427,000 Kansans attended energy events across the state. Together, they saved nearly 121 billion BTUs of energy and 16,000 gallons of water. To engage non-traditional voices in the transmission conversation, I created and coordinated the Heartland Alliance for Regional Transmission, we called it HEART, that we actually started with a very small DOE grant. The organization was made up of farmers and ranchers, chambers of commerce, economic development professionals, educators, agriculture organizations, environmentalists, and others from the 8 states within the Southwest Power Pool region. We advocated at SPP for transmission planning and clean energy policy that was needed to be able to expand renewables across the very rich wind areas. I heard someone say that it was very unusual when they walked into a stakeholder meeting. Imagine walking into an SPP meeting that typically is only attended by utility executives and regulatory commissioners or people who are paid a lot of money to be at those meetings, with 28 farmers and ranchers and economic development professionals who didn't really have anything to say. We just really at that point wanted to learn what they were doing and to watch the unusual looks on their faces of who are you and what do you want and why are you here? Our newest project, Water and Energy Progress, I'm really excited about. It identifies innovative practices on Kansas farms and ranches that save water, that save energy, and it really has become a way to engage the agricultural community more fully in the clean energy conversation. As Kim mentioned, I'm here today because of my work at the Kansas legislature. Really, I'm going to tell you the story of it, and I hope that what you'll realize is it wasn't just my work at the Kansas legislature. For the past 3 legislative sessions, we have successfully defended attacks on clean energy policy in Kansas. We did that by activating a network that we have cultivated through our programs over the past 7 years. Programs like the Take Charge Challenge and HEART and Water and Energy Progress. With those programs, we developed relationships. We engaged partners from the environmental community, progressive agriculture, and the wind industry to create a network and a campaign called Wind Works for Kansas. This effort yielded thousands of phone calls, emails, postcards to Kansas legislators. Supporters of clean energy made hundreds of personal visits to their legislators. They submitted testimony, they wrote op-eds. This legislative session, there were 8 separate bills to kill the renewable portfolio standard. Kansans prevailed, and the renewable portfolio standard was saved. In the midst of defending the RPS and really focusing on that, we also had a net metering battle. We were able to activate a national network of partners and folks that have helped us over the years, and we brokered a compromise between the utilities, the solar industry, and advocates to keep net metering intact, but we know that that'll be going through the regulatory process next year. During that same time, we were fortunate to also have passed the very first energy efficiency legislation that Kansas has ever seen. And again, really because of the networks and the relationships we've built over the years. When the Climate and Energy Project began, energy conversations in Kansas were met with an seemingly insurmountable divide over a proposed coal plant. It pitted environmentalists against conservatives, limited the discussions, and blocked any progress for clean energy. We emerged on the scene in 2007 with a fresh perspective that energy efficiency and renewable energy make great financial sense, and they can have positive impacts on the pocketbook and the planet. Our messaging skipped the arguments about climate change and focused instead on the solutions that make sense for all of us. Those innovative programs that I spoke about have translated into greater education, engagement with people across the state, and obvious impact on clean energy policy. The relationships we built were really the key to our success. We spend every day working to bridge the partisan divides by connecting the people, the organizations, and the ideas across the Heartland. This work is really possible from my two stellar staff as well, Rachel and Cassie. I want to leave you with this thought. In my work as the ED of a nonprofit, I spend a lot of time raising money to do this important work. I sometimes struggle to get funders to understand why it's important to invest their limited dollars in one of the reddest states in the country. Our senators are unlikely to vote for a carbon tax. They're likely not to vote for a federal renewable energy standard, although if you follow Kansas politics, that may be changing. Our state administration fights the EPA at every opportunity. We're not turning purple like my friend Jackie's state, Louisiana. Yesterday, Amy Glassmeyer gave us a snapshot of the world's population migration to cities. When I think about that shift here in the United States, I imagine the potential for rural America, for flyover states like Kansas and Oklahoma, to provide the renewable resources that, as Amy said, we need to deliver the energy without destroying the world around us. Thank you so much for this great honor.